This Thanksgiving, we pause to remember the blessings that make America home: faith, family, freedom, and the gratitude that unites us all. This is Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special with Beau Davidson, and it starts right now, only on Real America's Voice.
Welcome to Give Thanks, a Real America's Voice Thanksgiving special. As you enjoy this traditional and uniquely American holiday today, I want to spend the next hour giving you a slice of our culture that is as American as the apple, pumpkin, or pecan pie that you may eat today. There is a whole history of Thanksgiving that dates back well before the Pilgrims came to America. And while our current society sort of reduces it all down to turkeys, engorging ourselves, and perhaps some good old American football, it can be easy to forget the real spirit and meaning behind today's celebration. Most media networks will merely gloss over today without getting to the real heart of the matter. I think there is a certain educational responsibility we have as Americans to make sure each generation understands our traditions and culture, or else they will erode and can be easily replaced. We have seen many modern manifestations of this in which the faith-forward message of holidays give way to an agnostic commercialization. At its very heart, Thanksgiving is a day of giving thanks to our Creator for His benevolence and goodness, which we are to emulate and pass on to others, and show them the same grace. To get some insight into the detailed history of Thanksgiving, I want to bring in historian William J. Federer. He's an author, speaker, and founder of AmeriSearch Inc., a publishing company dedicated to researching America's noble heritage. Bill's American Minute radio feature is broadcast daily across America. Bill, happy Thanksgiving to you, and for you, I imagine that when you hear that phrase echoed throughout this day, it probably bears more significance with all the knowledge you have about this American tradition, yes?
Well, it definitely does. And we go back to the Pilgrims, and when we remind ourselves that they were persecuted for their faith. The King of England was Anglican, and if you didn't go along with that, you were canceled, you were censored, you were put in prison, and they would even brand them on the face as a heretic and cut off their ears. It was pretty serious. Could you imagine the government putting people in prison maybe for tweeting something that they didn't like? I was reminded that 16,000 people are in prison in England today, some for as little as liking a post. But this was the situation back that caused the Pilgrims to flee from England to Holland, and then after 12 years to America.
Well, Bill, walk me through some of the history of Thanksgiving, because I feel like culture just glosses over it with the basic Pilgrim account. What's the true origin? Go back to the very beginning if you can. You hinted at it there, but let's make sure we're accurate.
Right. So the Pilgrims were basically Baptists. So you had the Anglican Church, and the King of England persecuted Catholics and Baptists and Presbyterians and Puritans, anybody that was not Anglican. The Presbyterians were in Scotland. They had elders, and they would make a covenant. But the separatists were just wanting to remove themselves, and they would meet in secret in barns and basements by candlelight. Some of them sold their property and were going to go to Holland. Holland had 7 provinces that took 80 years to get independent from Spain, but they had a little give and take when it came to religion. And so the Pilgrims sold their property, bought passage on a ship, but right before the ship takes off, they robbed the Pilgrims and put them in jail. Well, another group of Pilgrims sell their property and arrange for a Dutch ship to sail up the coast, and they were going to row out in rowboats. The Pilgrims show up a day early, and it's wavy, and the women and children want to wait on the shore. And so the ship shows, the men are stowing stuff, and someone snitches, and the police come over the hill and capture the women and children. And the Dutch captain sails away with the men. You can just imagine those women watching that ship getting smaller and smaller and disappearing over the horizon. For 2 years, they pass those women and children from one court in England to another. Finally, a judge says, you didn't do anything wrong, go home. They go, duh, we sold our homes. And just to get them out of their hair, they put them on a boat and send them over to Holland. They were reunited with their husbands. But it was very hard. They would work 3 jobs, and their kids started to assimilate and become Dutch. And that's when they decided to flee to Jamestown. They were going to go to Virginia. It's a 3,000-mile journey, 66 days. They're in a 5-foot-high tween deck with no windows, tossing and turning. One of the Pilgrims gets washed overboard, John Howland. He's like 12 feet under, and somebody throws a rope in the freezing North Atlantic, and they fish him out. But they get to the shores of America, and they're 500 miles away from Virginia. And so they try sailing south and almost sink, and the captain says it's too dangerous to sail everyone off the boat. And the Pilgrims say, well, what are we going to do? There's no king appointed person in our group. There's 102 of us. Nobody's been picked by the king. Who's going to be in charge? They do something unique that we remember them for. They take their covenant church form of government and they make it their civil government. It says, it's called the Mayflower Compact. We, in the presence of God, covenant ourselves together into a civil body politic, a church group covenanting itself into a civil body politic group. It's a polarity change in the flow of power on planet Earth. Instead of top-down rule by kings, bottom-up rule by the 102 of us. And so that set the precedent for these other Puritan pastors and churches to found cities. So the First Baptist Church in America founded a city, Providence, Rhode Island. The First Congregational Church founded a city, Hartford, Connecticut. Churches founding cities? So everybody's involved in church and everybody's involved in city government because it's the church founding the city. And so it's a covenant form of government that they got from ancient Israel, that first 400 years out of Egypt before they got a king. And this covenant form of government, in Latin, the word federal is covenant. So we have a covenant form of government in America that can be traced back to the Pilgrims, that can be traced back to ancient Israel, that first 400 years out of Egypt before they got a king.
Wow, that's fascinating history, Bill, because you mentioned this covenant, and that's so important because of the religious connotation of it. Another element that I think gets lost in our modern tradition, I hinted at this earlier, is the element of why we give thanks. So I want to get into those early settlers, those pilgrims, and their notion of divine providence, because if you have bountiful food, good health, safety, prosperity, whom exactly are you thanking? So how did the pilgrims view this?
Well, they definitely were thanking God. So interestingly enough, they originally were going to go to Guyana, South America, because they heard of the perpetual spring. But then somebody reminded them that the French Protestants tried to settle around Jacksonville, Florida in 1565, and the Spanish found out about it and butchered them all. And so they decided, we're not going to go anywhere near Spain. They were going to go to Jamestown, and it's a good thing they didn't, because 4,000 people died in Jamestown between 1607 and 1624. One winter, it was called the starving time. It started off with 500. By the spring, there's only 50 left. And then in 1622, there's an Indian massacre that kills a quarter of the Jamestown colony. So it's a good thing the Pilgrims didn't go there. And then there's the story of Squanto. So evidently, a French ship had shipwrecked there at Cape Cod 3 years earlier, and one of them must have had an illness and wiped out the tribe. Well, Squanto had been kidnapped. The Pilgrims were religious, but not everybody else was. And so you'd have unscrupulous people lure Indians onto their boat, lock them below deck, take them to Spain, Malaga, sell them into slavery. That's what happened to Squanto. Some Franciscan friars free him, and he hitchhikes his way to England. He's working for a company in Newfoundland and then gets dropped off, only to find that his tribe was wiped out. And so Squanto is living with the neighboring Wampanoag tribe. And you can just imagine the news coming into his teepee that a bunch of English people are trying to start a settlement in his whole old stomping ground. And so William Bradford writes about Squanto, came amongst them, spoke to them in perfect English. You could just imagine him saying, oh yeah, England, I used to live there, out of the woods. But he teaches them how to plant corn, how to catch fish, how to catch beaver. It took 40 years worth of beaver skins to pay off their debt to the investors that loaned him the money. In 1625, one of the ships full of beaver skins got captured by Muslim pirates and taken to Morocco, and the crew was sold into slavery. But Squanto was their interpreter, put him on good terms with the other Indian tribes, Chief Massasoit. The first Thanksgiving, 90 Indians, only 52 Pilgrims, almost twice as many Indians. And what's worse is there were only 4 adult women. All the other women had died in the previous winter. And so you had 24 men, 24 children and teenagers, but 4 women to cook for 142 people. But the first Thanksgiving goes on for a day. The Indians roll up in their blanket, and then they wake up, and the next day they're still there. So it goes on a second day. And then at the end of the day, they roll up in their blankets, and the third day they're still there. So it goes on a third day. But they were thanking God. Interestingly enough, Squanto, 1622 in the September, William Bradford says they were exploring the bay and it's freezing rain. They put into Manamoick Bay on an island, and here Squanto fell ill of Indian fever, bleeding much at the nose, which the Indians take for a symptom of death. And he begged Governor Bradford to pray for him that he would go to the Englishman's God in heaven.
Wow.
Well, the Englishmen gods, these were pilgrims. These were
Yeah.
serious Christians that left to come to have their Christian faith. And he witnessed it and he says, I want to go to your God.
Wow. That's
So they
incredible.
were thanking God for the harvest. And it's a fascinating history. I put together a whole book on it called The Treacherous World of the 16th Century and how the Pilgrims escaped it.
Bill, you mentioned that the feast happened over several days and there were twice as many Indians as pilgrims. Give us an idea what those early Thanksgiving feasts were like. I mean, they couldn't go to their local supermarket and purchase it, of course. So what kind of foods would have been on the table?
Well, the Pilgrims had puddings and cranberries, and in New England they have bogs, right? You'd flood an area, and then the berries would float to the top. But the Indians did show up with deer and turkey, and so they brought 90 Indians, but they did bring several deer and turkey, and the young men would have arm wrestling and foot races, and they would get along. So and then even. Chief Massasoit later fell ill, and the Pilgrim, Edward Winslow, and Stephen Hopkins doctored him back, and he recovered. And as a result, there was a 50-year peace between the Indians and the Pilgrims. Of course, the fine print is if you doctor an Indian chief and they die, you die. So it's pretty risky there. But the Pilgrims and the Indians got along, and thanks to Squanto being their interpreter. William Bradford said he was a special instrument sent of God for their good beyond their expectation.
Bill, is there anywhere else in the world that celebrates Thanksgiving the way we Americans do, or is it really uniquely us?
Well, this is pretty much us. I mean, the Jews were kicked out of Spain and settled in Leiden, Holland, and the Pilgrims fled England and settled in Leiden, Holland. And so the Pilgrims began identifying with Jews. And they would consider themselves, well, you left the Pharaoh and we left the King of England, and you crossed the Red Sea and we crossed the English Channel, all right? And you found your promised land, we're looking for ours. And so in their writings, that's why they taught Hebrew at Yale and Harvard. And so they would have known that the Jews celebrate the Feast of Trumpets, which is the end of the harvest season, and then later the Feast of Tabernacles. And so there were these feasts. In Leiden, they had an annual day of Thanksgiving to celebrate victory over Spain, because Spain had the Spanish Fury where they killed like 10,000 in Antwerp, Belgium. And so they had these two Thanksgiving traditions that the Pilgrims would have been exposed to. And then they obviously, in New England, they would have annual days of, believe it or not, fasting. So usually it was Good Friday, but they would have this idea that when things were bad, you would have days of prayer. When things were real bad, you would have days of fasting and prayer. And when things turned around, you would have days of Thanksgiving. And so it was sort of on an as-needed basis. And then the Continental Congress had days of Thanksgiving, like when we won the Battle of Saratoga, or like when Benedict Arnold was caught. But it was Lincoln that made the day of Thanksgiving an annual event. And then the different presidents from Lincoln on gave annual days of Thanksgiving proclamations, always mentioning God, the God of the Bible, and many of them having scripture verses in them.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for illuminating this special day in its history. We are certainly grateful for you, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, too.
And when we come back, I will speak to the writer and director of the very popular animated series Tuttle Twins, which has been entertaining and educating kids all over the country. We'll be right back.
You're watching Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special, right here on Real America's Voice. You're watching Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special, right here on Real America's Voice.
Welcome back to Give Thanks, a Real America's Voice Thanksgiving special. One of the ways that people get into the holiday spirit is through entertainment and culture. Most of you probably remember a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, as this is the time of year when people are off work and they can actually take some time to watch their favorite shows. But now, the amount of entertainment at your fingertips is vast, and the competition for eyeballs is honestly quite fierce. Thankfully, Angel Studios is there to provide some great entertainment for you and your family. And one such show that can be both entertaining and educational is Tuttle Twins, an animated show that follows Ethan and Emily Tuttle, a pair of inquisitive and daring twins, on their quest to learn important life lessons. And Grandma Gabby is a character who teaches them about liberty and economics. So this show is as hilarious as it is informative. I'm joined now by the show's writer, director, and the voice of Ethan Tuttle, Johnny Vance. Johnny, thank you so much for joining me on this Thanksgiving special, sir.
Great to be here. I'm very thankful, Beau.
Thank you, Johnny, and we're grateful for you and everything you're doing at Tuttle Twins. So, Johnny, just to give some history and a little perspective, you come from a comedic writing background, having written some advertisements for Squatty Potty, Poo-Pourri, Purple Mattress, and Chat Books. You teamed up with author Connor Boyack, who wrote the Tuttle Twins books. So how did this very fun marriage of minds occur?
That's right. So we'd had a lot of fun and a lot of success blowing up brands on the internet. And I'm sorry if any of our ads were annoying to you, if you remember those. But we'd also had a lot of experience kind of educating people quickly in entertaining ways. And we were ready, my co-founder and I, Daniel, we were ready to do something, I guess, in the entertainment world, and then something that we thought could be constructive and helpful to families. And we'd been big fans of the books of Connor for a while. He'd originally written these Tuttle Twins books. And so we approached Connor and we said, hey, can we take our know-how and bring it to your book series? And then let's just see if there's an appetite out there. And then, before we knew it, we'd crowdfunded almost $5 million. We'd broken the record for the #1 crowdfunded kid show. And it was just baffling to see how many parents were just like, yes, we want this. We need this. We need principles of freedom taught to our kids in a way that they will love and want to rewatch over and over.
Yeah, Johnny, I think not a lot of people probably understand the concept of ideation, of how it comes from this concept and book and then takes off this way. But this show has absolutely taken off. You mentioned it, where families are enjoying it and kids are learning free market principles. What was the hole in the market that you guys saw? Was it like that shows like Sesame Street were too few and far between? Or why did you and Connor and your whole team see the need for Tuttle Twins as a series?
Yeah, there's just so many kids who graduate high school and even college, and they don't know these foundational principles of freedom and economics. And then by the time they've graduated college, they don't understand the economy enough to know, what to do about it. They feel cheated and they don't know what to do. And so they turn to destructive ideologies like socialism and Marxism. And so we really just thought we want to make something for our own kids where they're learning why inflation is happening. They're learning about hard money. They're learning about really about what free market capitalism is all about. So they can learn this at an early age so they can see through the lies and the propaganda that they're inevitably going to get hit with online and in schools.
Yeah, and Johnny, to that point, because it is Thanksgiving, I know that you guys devoted an entire episode to the holiday from season 2 called The First Thanksgiving with William Bradford and the Pilgrims of Plymouth. I love this episode, so let's play a clip of that right now.
Oh, it wasn't always this way. During our first winter, more than half of us died due to cold, disease, and starvation.
Man.
But then the Native Americans taught you the value of gratitude and giving, and no one went hungry again. Thanksgiving!
What? No. What are they teaching you in school? Yes, the Native Americans did help a great deal, but we still struggled and starved for 2 more years, constantly worrying about where our next meal would come from.
Oh.
You see, for 3 years, we'd run our colony on a system where everyone worked the land and were forced to share the fruits of their labor equally.
That sounds like our kids' club.
And the socialism idea Grandma was talking about.
Unfortunately, this system produced terrible results. Many people chose to do the bare minimum to get by.
Because they were lazy, like some kids I know?
No, because they weren't incentivized or motivated to work hard. And when incentives are lost, we all bear the cost.
What do you mean?
When your family is starving, it's difficult to work hard when you know you're forced to give the fruits of your labor to someone else.
I know I was struggling to stay motivated when I wasn't going to keep what I earned.
Exactly. And that doesn't make you lazy. You're just working in a bad system. So I proposed a different plan based on principles of freedom. Each family would farm their own land and was free to keep the fruits of their labors.
And it worked?
Incredibly well. Our people were finally incentivized to work hard. Before, men tended the fields while families stayed home. Now, entire families gladly pitch in and farm together, increasing our food supply dramatically.
What about people who couldn't farm for themselves?
The beauty is that we now have far more food to help the needy than socialism, as you call it, ever gave us.
Johnny, I immediately recognized Kevin Sorbo's voice for William Bradford, but it's so funny to me the way that he scolds Ethan for what he's learned in school. And then the way Bradford explains how the Pilgrims had to fight socialism was so interesting the way you wrote that. Was the storyboarding on this that the same things that William Bradford dealt with then are what we face even today?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a tale as old as time. They were, when they landed, it was very much this communal system. It wasn't called socialism back then, but they reaped the fruits of their labor of socialism, where it just discouraged output. And I think when William Bradford had this insight to let everyone keep the fruits of their labor, I mean, the Pilgrims farmed 7 times more food. It was incredible. So, yeah, I mean, we were feeling it. We're hearing it from our parents. And they're telling us we need this, and so that's kind of what directed our episode here, Wrestling with Socialism.
Well, it's a great episode, and Tuttle Twins has been the #1 show on Angel as of fall of 2025. So clearly, this is the it show, and that's saying something, Johnny, because of all the great content that's offered on Angel. Why do you think the show has such a dedicated and growing following?
I don't know. We just make it for our own families. We make it and we see numbers on a screen. So I wish I could say, but I do think there's an awakening in America where, parents after COVID realize they can do a lot more to educate their kids, and they have the power. And I think, I think to date, we've had, 500 years of watch time on Tuttle Twins. So it's kind of mind boggling to us. We're like, how do we understand? We're hoping these kids are internalizing these principles, because that's just a mind-boggling number to us.
It is. And you've got a mini-sode that just released called Dark Dumpster Derek Returns, and I want you to kind of speak to that and briefly give us a synopsis of what it's all about.
Yeah, so Dark Dumpster Derek, we wanted to teach kids about gold and hard money and how you can save in a money that can't be debased. Like right now, everyone feels like it's penny pinching time. Inflation really hurts. But if kids are able to save in hard money like gold or Bitcoin from early on, they're going to not have their personal savings debased. So it's really just empowering kids and making it fun to learn about things like that.
And they do need to learn about that. I think it's an important principle, Johnny. Well, you've just released season 4, and you'll have episode 2 airing on December 2nd, and then every Tuesday, what you call Tuttle Tuesday. What can fans expect to see in this 4th season, Johnny?
That's right. So we have great guest stars. We have Henry Ford going to teach kids about creative destruction and how, there's more abundance that's made through technology, especially with this AI craze that's happening. We have Thomas Sowell talking about the dangers of equity, so kids can kind of learn what's under the hood of some of these seemingly really good sounding policies. We have Michaela Peterson up talking about the food industrial complex and kind of empowering kids to learn, the closer to the farm, the further from harm. And so, just a lot of fun episodes, and we try and make it really fun for the whole family. Each, episode probably has half the jokes for adults and half for kids. So we hope you'll check it out.
But I love that you're doing it for you and your family, too, because if it doesn't please your family, it's probably not going to please a lot of others. So I think that's a great model that you've got. And, Johnny, because this is a Thanksgiving special that we have today, I do want to give you the floor to just express what you were thankful for on this particular Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Beau. Yeah, I'm most of all thankful for our fans, our audience. We made this show outside of the Hollywood system, and the only way it got funded and keeps getting funded is because of parents. Like many of your listeners who feel like they can make a difference in the world, and they put their money where their mouth is and have just supported our show. And it's, with all the dark things happening in the world, it's just so awe-inspiring to know that there's this force for good and a force of parents wanting to raise their children in a way that's good. And anyways, I'm very grateful for that.
And that's what you guys at Angel do, honestly, is you amplify light. That's the phrase that keeps coming up. So, we have this special relationship and partnership between Real America's Voice and Angel, and that we love getting our viewers signed up for the Angel Guild so that they can see Tuttle Twins and so many more great films and series. Now, I know that there's this big Black Friday deal where you can get up to 42% off of Guild memberships. Talk to me, Johnny, about the Guild and why it's such a special model for content consumers.
Yeah, it really is so unique. So the Guild, think of it, when you join Angel, you're not just subscribing, you're joining the Guild, which the Guild has the power to greenlight what happens, what gets made at Angel. So traditional Hollywood has a room full of executives that top down tell you what your kids are going to watch, whether you like it or not. Angel Guild is the opposite. It's the upside down pyramid where a film only gets made if you vote for it. So when you join the Guild, you'll see early versions of movies, shows, each episode of the Tuttle Twins. If there's something you don't like or something you love, you let us know. And us directors and co-creators, we change what we make based on what you say. So it really puts the power in the hands of the parents and of the families.
And what I think is so cool is there's probably someone watching right now that is a would-be Johnny Vance, someone that's out there that has an idea, that sees a hole in the market. And the great thing about it is you can go to Angel and actually have your idea come to life through crowdfunding. So thank you so much, Johnny, and happy Thanksgiving to you, sir.
Thanks, Beau. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
God bless you. When we come back, many of your favorite RAV hosts will share what Thanksgiving means to them and what they are grateful for. Stick around.
You're watching Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special, right here on Real America's Voice. You're watching Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special, right here on Real America's Voice.
Welcome back to Give Thanks. Today we express our sincere gratitude and reflect upon our blessings. I recently saw a quote by Bill Watterson that says, "We're so busy watching out for what's just ahead of us that we don't take the time to enjoy where we are." I'm certainly guilty of that, always thinking of having to plan for another day. Here at Real America's Voice, we live by the news cycle, and every day is a challenge to keep up with the fast-paced cycle. But it's so important to take a breather, to remember where we are in this moment, and express our gratitude, not just for our blessings, but also express gratitude to you, our viewers, for being so faithful to us. And for myself, well, I'm thankful for a merciful God, a wonderful family that includes Alice, Alexander, and my mother. I'm thankful for my role here at Real America's Voice, where I can speak freely about my views and perspectives and faith. I don't know if you all realize that most members of the media can't really express how they feel, because it may not be in lockstep with the ownership. And while journalists should absolutely set aside their bias to bring truth to the people, all too often journalists are pressured into reporting things that might not even be factual. So I'm thankful that all of us here can express our views freely, even if we disagree. We need to uphold Charlie Kirk's ethos of free speech and being able to honorably and respectfully disagree. I'm thankful that we live in a country where we can worship how we choose and speak however we wish and live in relative peace with one another. But our freedom is constantly under attack. So today, make sure you reflect upon these basic freedoms that were cultivated even back in those early Pilgrim days. It's what makes us unique. We'll be right back.
You're watching Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special, right here on Real America's Voice. You're watching Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special, right here on Real America's Voice.
Welcome back to Give Thanks, right here on Real America's Voice. One thing that I am thankful for is my health, because health is something that should not be taken for granted. And around this time of year and the holidays, people tend to let their health slip a little bit as they indulge in the treats of the season, only to vow to change their diet and nutrition in the new year. But in order to stay more vigilant about our health, I've asked Dr. Kelly Victory of the Wellness Company to join me to discuss health over the holidays. Dr. Victory, happy Thanksgiving to you, and thanks for being with me.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Beau, and thank you for having me.
Well, Dr. Victory, we mentioned that the holidays can be tough for folks who are worried about their weight and their health. What is your advice for making better choices this time of year?
Well, absolutely. The holidays are all about festivities, family, and food. And so there are, unfortunately, lots and lots of ways to sort of fall off the wagon or fall off your normal program. Here are the things that I recommend in general. First of all, absolutely, you should plan to attend those festivities. That's really what the season is about. But number one, plan ahead. Have an idea of how you're going to approach that event so that you don't totally derail the program that you've been on. And what I mean by that is don't plan to starve yourself all day thinking, oh my gosh, I want to save room to eat. In fact, I tell people to have a snack before you go, something healthy. Could be a handful of carrots, an apple, a hard-boiled egg, a carton of yogurt. Don't go in famished thinking that you will be able to resist all of the temptation. That's number one. Number two, definitely survey all of the food options before you dive in. You hate to go headfirst into the chips and dip only to find out that in the next room, there's something that you actually really adore and would like to try. So survey all of the food options first, see what your best choices can be. I recommend that people drink non-alcoholic beverages throughout the event, sparkling water, plain water, something like that. If you choose to drink alcohol, and I'm not discouraging people from having a glass of wine, at least make the bargain with yourself that for every alcoholic beverage you have, you'll have a full 12 ounces of water or something non-caloric in between. That way you're spacing out that caloric beverage, and it will slow down also the impact that alcohol tends to have on your appetite. Try to get in a brief or at least a brisk walk before or after the event. You can, number one, it reminds your body that you actually do put health first. And you're not simply going to give into all the indulgences of the holiday season. And then whatever you do, get back onto your program at the very next meal. People do tend, as you said, Beau, to fall into the trap of, well, I've blown it now, so I'll start again on Monday, or God forbid, I'll start again on January 1st. There's no reason to not get back onto your healthful eating plan and exercise program at the very next meal.
That's such sound advice, Dr. Victory. I appreciate what you said about the alcohol, too, about balancing it out with the water. I think, unfortunately, Thanksgiving teaches us to be sedentary. You've got the football that comes after your meal, so that teaches you to sit down. You don't want to go out and exercise. You want to have not just this pie, but that pie. It's like It's like it's a whole just cornucopia of things that you want to gorge yourself with. So what your advice is very sound. Dr. Victory, how can products like TWC's Drop help turn a potential holiday weight disaster into a holiday success story?
Well, Drop is a remarkable product, Beau. It's actually an oral form of a GLP-1 agonist, similar to Ozempic, which many people have heard about, which is an injectable form. This is actually needle-free, and you take it on a daily basis. It has multiple mechanisms of action. It controls the way that the body utilizes glucose and insulin. But most importantly for the patient or for the user, it decreases that constant food hunger, what I call food chatter, that makes you constantly crave snacking or particularly carbohydrates for many people. So it allows you to it's sort of liquid willpower, if you will. It allows you to eat a small amount of something and be satisfied, not overindulge. And because it's taken daily, it's far easier for people to control their body's requirements for it. When you take a shot once a week, you can imagine you have a huge spike in the amount of drug in your body, and then it tapers off over the next 6 days. When you take Drop, you put it in a small amount of water every day, so the amount of the medication in your body remains constant throughout the week. People have had remarkable results with it and very, very few, if any, side effects.
That's great, Dr. Victory. I hadn't heard of it. What a great product, because I'm notorious for snacking, especially late at night. And so this sounds like the management of it, the consistency of it is what's key, and not just injecting it and then having it taper off. Totally, what a great product. Well, the holidays, Dr. Victory, also mean holiday parties, as we talked about earlier, and family and friends. That's great. But it's also flu season. So how is the flu season shaping up this year so far?
Every year we have them raising the fear flags that this is going to be a terrible flu season. Flu seasons are cyclical. We have some years where we have more cases than others. The bottom line is, Beau, that people need to be vigilant about their overall health and wellness. There is no shot, there is no medication that will substitute for the basics: good nutrition, regular exercise, adequate sleep, stress mitigation, those sorts of things. There's always a big push by the powers that be for the flu shots. Unfortunately, the flu shot is not a panacea. In a really good year, the flu shot may be 50, 55% effective. In a bad year, it can be less than 20% effective. And unfortunately, we have multiple studies have shown that taking the flu shot actually puts you at higher risk for contracting other respiratory viruses. So I'm not telling any one individual don't get a flu shot, but I think you're way better off focusing on your overall health and wellness.
What medication should people have on hand if they get the flu? And does the wellness company have something as an antidote to this?
There are prescription medications, including Tamiflu, which can decrease the length of time that people have symptoms from the flu. We have it available in one of our number of emergency medical kits and medical kits that come with prescription antibiotics, antivirals, medications for nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, ways to treat wound infections and those sorts of things. So you can go to the website and look at all of the different kits, see what's included in them, but several of the kits do include Tamiflu, which can be taken if you do, unfortunately, contract influenza.
Well, Dr. Victor, we know that this is the time of year when people travel. The day before Thanksgiving, obviously, is a big one. Coming up, Christmas, of course. That means travel, lots of travel. What medications do you recommend that people should have on hand when they're traveling?
Well, again, I take one of our emergency medical kits with me because I want to have common antibiotics to treat everything from urinary tract infection to strep throat, bronchitis, those sorts of things, any of the foodborne illnesses, that cause nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea, and those sorts of things. The last thing you want to be doing over a holiday or when you're traveling is having to find an urgent care or, God forbid, an emergency department where you're going to spend hours and hours of time and, by the way, incur a whopping medical bill. So many of these medications are useful across a number of different illnesses. All of our kits come with a very detailed guidebook, and you can always avail yourself of a telemedicine visit with one of our practitioners if you're not sure what to take. So we put these kits together, Beau, with the intention of making it so that people were not beholden to the system constantly, particularly, as you said, when you might be out of town or over a holiday.
And Dr. Victory, finally, and I know this is more mental health oriented since you guys deal so much in the prescription world, but as a medical doctor, I feel like a lot of people get lonely this time of year. Loneliness is a very real thing. Depression sets in. There's probably people watching the show today who are lonely, who feel despondent. Maybe they don't keep in contact with their families. What do you recommend, Dr. Victory, for people who are battling that mental crisis this time of year?
You are 100% correct. Depression and loneliness peak during the holiday season, and it's tragic. For those people who find themselves alone on the holiday, I recommend they fix that by getting out and giving back to others. You can go and volunteer at a soup kitchen. You can go to a local church. Even if you aren't a member of that church, you can find community. It is best for people not to be alone. In addition, this is a time when a brisk walk, getting outdoors, being not stoved up in your house by yourself really helps. Put down the iPad, put down your cell phone, turn off the television, and actually get out and commune with others. Sometimes it's giving back to others that actually is the best remedy.
That's incredible advice. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Victor, for giving this sage advice on a day like Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Doctor.
And to you.
And for those watching, the Wellness Company is having a Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale with 25% off their supplements and prescriptions and 20% off memberships and medical kits. When we come back, I will perform a wonderful praise and worship song that many of you will know called Give Thanks with a Grateful Heart that Don Moen made famous. Stick around and we'll be right back.
You're watching Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special, right here on Real America's Voice. You're watching Give Thanks, a Thanksgiving special, right here on Real America's Voice.
Welcome back to Give Thanks. One of the ways I think that we can give thanks is the giving of our time and talents. When the offering plate comes around, I think of that widow who gave all she had, her last 2 coins. That offering is so much greater proportionally than a rich person who gives millions away. But if not monetary, we can give of the talents that we have been blessed with. I had the gift of music, and I remembered an old praise and worship song called Give Thanks with a Grateful Heart. I don't know if there is a better song that sums up how we should show gratitude than this one. And I reached out to the singer who made this song very, very popular, Don Moen, who was performing in Singapore. And Don told me that although he has been credited with the song, he did not write it. It turns out it was written by Henry Smith. Moen had heard the song at a prayer meeting outside of Dallas in 1984, and he recorded it for his first album with Integrity Music. For 4 years, the song was attributed to unknown. It was Henry Smith who composed the song and began singing it in church. And it wasn't until a friend brought Smith a cassette tape, if you remember those, back in 1986, that he realized that the song had been recorded more than 50 times. When Smith met Don Moen in Washington, D.C., they played a recording of the song in Russian, and Smith began to weep, overwhelmed that his song had been translated into another language. The scriptural basis of the song comes from Psalms 9, 86, 111, and 138. And the story behind the song is amazing too. Smith wrote the song at a time of unemployment, financial insecurity, and an uncertain future due to a degenerative visual condition that led him to becoming legally blind. Paul's words in 2 Corinthians likely ring true here. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. I'd like to close this special with a performance of Give Thanks, because now that you know the story behind it, that a man in desperate times who was going blind wrote a song not about misfortune, but about giving thanks to God Almighty. It should give us some perspective. Let's remember to give thanks with a grateful heart.
We give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks. And we give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I
Thanks everyone for watching this special today. And from our studios in West Palm Beach to your homes, happy Thanksgiving.